Welcome back to Extraordinary Women. I'm Shannon Skinner, and I am joined by Jasmeet Sidhu, who is a journalist, writer, human rights advocate, and also a blogger for the Huffington Post. Later in the segment, before we take a break, I'll have my regular Good to Know Minute when I ask my guests for their top tip on creating a successful life, and you're going to hear Jasmeet's. Jasmeet Sidhu, hello.
Hi.
That's great having you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Now, you're an award-winning journalist, writer, human rights advocate, and you happen to blog for the Huffington Post.
I do, yes.
How cool is that?
It's pretty cool. Sometimes I don't do it as often as I like to, but when I do get to do it, I'm like, this is really cool that I get to do this.
What a great opportunity. Now, you're based in Toronto, but how did you get to the Huffington Post?
Well, actually, a couple years ago, I was featured as an award winner in Glamour magazine as part of their Top 10 College Women Award. And they flew us down to New York City to meet everyone who worked at the Glamour offices, and they took us to the different places in New York City, like the Museum of Modern Art. And there was a woman there who was there to meet all of us, and she was a living editor at the Huffington Post. So we were talking about how I was interested in writing, and she was interested in looking for new sort of young contributors to the website. And we exchanged business cards, and it kind of got set up from there, and I've been doing it ever since.
Now, you're quite remarkable because how old are you?
I'm 23.
You're 23, and you've already won a number of awards. In fact, some of them happen to be, you've been named by the Globe and Mail and Women's Executive Network as one of Canada's 100 most powerful women. Glamour magazine's top 100 college women in North America, Canada's national top 20 under 20, and of course the Michelle Landsberg Award for Media Activism. Mm-hmm. At 23, congratulations!
Thank you. I've been really fortunate in terms of the awards and accolades that have kind of come towards me, and I've been really humble about it too, about the amazing women that I've gotten to meet through these different networks.
Now, you've loved newspapers for a very long time. Mm-hmm. When was that moment that you decided you wanted to be a journalist?
Well, actually, a lot of people don't know this, but I'm an immigrant here to Canada. I was born in Malaysia, and when we were immigrants to Canada for the first time, I came here when I was 10 months old. My mother's first job in Canada was actually delivering the Toronto Star newspaper. So she would get up in the middle of the night, get up at 2 in the morning, and deliver the paper to people's doorsteps in Mississauga, which is where we first lived in Canada. And so pretty much the first 10 years of my life, because that's how long she did it for, I grew up with stacks of newspapers just around our apartment, days old, weeks old Toronto Star editions just around me. And I guess it was just, they were the first things that I learned how to read, and it was just something that was just a part of my life growing up. So when I came to university, it was just something that naturally came to me. Like, I love the smell of the ink on newspapers, and I obviously had been reading it for a long time, and it just came to a point, I'm like, you know what, I could be one of those people writing for the newspaper as well.
Were you one of those kids that had ink all over you?
Yes, definitely. I was one of the ones with the blackness on the fingertips all the time.
So your mom then must be proud of you. Your parents must be proud of you.
Yeah, my mom is extremely proud of me, and I remember the first time that my name was published in the Toronto Star as an article that I wrote, that it was just incredible to remember that my mom, as her first job, was delivering that paper, all across Mississauga, and here I was now, 20 years later, being able to write for that same paper. It was a really incredible feeling for both her and I.
Yeah, and you were the Toronto Star's youngest editorial board member, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. And that was my first formal start into journalism. I was in second year university, and the Toronto Star had put out some sort of advertisement saying they were looking for members of the GTA community to sit on what they called the community editorial board. So regular members of the community who would meet at the Toronto Star editorial offices and comment on what the Toronto Star was doing right, what the Toronto Star was doing wrong, are they covering certain neighborhoods correctly. So I had applied. I sent out my resume and wrote a letter saying, I have a lot. I think I was 19 at the time. I'm a university student, and I have a lot of opinions about how the media covers different communities, and this is something that I like to be a part of. And lo and behold, they selected me and ended up being the youngest person on the board that year, and I think the youngest person in the history of the board ever at that time.
That's a remarkable accomplishment.
Thank you.
Now, diversity and gendered violence are issues that are important to you, mm-hmm. and you write about it. Well, why are these important issues?
Well, I think diversity is important to me because obviously because of my skin color, I'm considered a member of a visible minority community in Toronto and in Canada. And I think growing up with that and growing up as an immigrant, it's obviously something that's informed my identity. It's informed my perspective and outlook in terms of how I approach different things, how I approach my journalism, how I approach media and my career. So I think that's something that was a natural given for me to, be something to be concerned about. And with gendered violence, I remember taking a women's studies course in university, and I was locally volunteering with a lot of women's groups in high school. And I think it's just something, violence against women is something that transcends, class, it transcends race, it transcends, it doesn't matter if you're an immigrant or fourth generation Canadian. Women from all those backgrounds can be affected by violence, and they are affected by violence in Canada. And I just think it's something that's so horrifying that, women are being assaulted and being beaten by, their spouses, their partners, by random people, in our society. And it infuriates me, and I just think it's something that I just am very passionate about ending in our society.
Now, with all of these awards and your writing, and you're really putting yourself out there, particularly at such a young age, what do your peers have to say about you?
I have had, my friends are like, I just have to say I have the best friends in the world, because sometimes I feel like they get more excited about the things that I'm doing than I get excited about. They're like, oh my God, you're the Huffington Post blogger. And I'm like, oh, I guess that's cool. My friends are great. And, the peers that I've been able to meet, in university and the different sort of opportunities that I've had, they've all been very supportive. And like I said, I'm just really lucky to be surrounded by the people that I'm surrounded with.
Now, you've also were recently, if those words weren't enough, you were recently named by Ankori. Is that how you pronounce it? Ankori?
Anoki?
Anoki, that's it. Anoki magazine as 2011's Sexy and Successful South Asians. Wow!
Yes.
Yet another one.
When I first heard about that honor, I kind of laughed to myself, because I don't think I ever associated the word sexy with myself. But it was a fun honor, because it's a magazine aimed towards the South Asian community in the UK, US, and Canada. And the editor of the magazine was a woman that I had previously worked with at the Toronto Star when I was an intern there. And they were looking for local Canadians to feature in that year's edition. And she put forward my name, and I was like, okay, I can call myself sexy, I guess.
Well, good for you. Now, at 16,
yes.
At the age of 16, you founded the Peel Environment Youth Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
So why did you do this instead of hanging out with your friends? You were busy creating, an organization that would impact other youth.
Yeah, it started a couple years ago when I was in grade 10 at Heart Lake Secondary School in Brampton. I got to give a shout out to that. I was part of my school's environment club, and we were struggling for a while. We didn't have funds. We didn't really have a lot of support from our, the school community. And I was thinking to myself, there must be other environment clubs that are successful in different high schools across Brampton, Mississauga, and the Peel region in general. And I was like, I wish there was an easy way to find those students. This is the days before Facebook, mind you, so it wasn't as easy to try to connect with different students from different high schools. So I thought, wouldn't it be great if there was just this organization where students can get together, once a month and talk about, the different recycling programs and how to solve different environmental issues in their school. So that's kind of how the idea for the Peel Environmental Youth Alliance started, and it just kept going from there. And now I think we're celebrating our 6 years as an organization come May. So it's been quite a ride, actually.
What's your vision for it?
I just hope that it keeps doing what it does best, which is basically bringing together every new generation of young high school environmentalists and giving them the tools and I guess the emotional support that there are others like them out there who care about the environment and who feel passionate about wanting to do things in their community.
Now, journalism for you clearly is important, and you mentioned to me that you see it as for you it's a platform in a way for impacting lives. Mm-hmm. How did this sort of idea come to you?
I guess it became a realization for me how powerful the media was when I first started writing columns as a member of the community editorial board at the Toronto Star. So not only did we get to provide our feedback to the Toronto Star on its newspaper coverage, we could also write columns for the paper on any issue that we were passionate about. So I used that opportunity to write columns on women and politics and is there enough representation gender-wise. I wrote about domestic violence. I wrote about diversity. I wrote about young women. And I just remember getting incredible feedback on those columns, especially my columns on domestic violence. I was getting a lot of feedback from even some women who had experienced domestic violence in the past, and they were just telling me that it felt so nice that these issues were being talked about, especially by a young woman from the South Asian communities, talking about violence in that community in particular. And it just became a realization for me about how powerful the media is and how it can be used as a tool to really give light to sort of dark injustices in our society, either here in Canada or globally.
And of course, with social media now, it's really created an opportunity to have dialogue.
Definitely. I think social media, I think we're still tapping into the potential that it could have in terms of progressing human rights causes all over the world. You've seen in North Africa how important social media has played in the pro-democracy movements there, and I still think that there's so much more to come with that area.
Now, it's time for a break, and before we do, it means it's my good to know minute. I know, Jasmeet, you've got a great tip.
Yeah, my tip would be to read a newspaper every day. I just think you'll be so much more on top of your game, and no matter what field that you're in, even if you're not in journalism, being aware of current events is always very crucial.
Very, very true. So thank you so much for that. Well, we're going to take a break and more when we come back with Jasmeet Sidhu. Welcome back to Extraordinary Women. I'm Shannon Skinner, and I'm joined by Jasmeet Sidhu, who's this remarkable young journalist, human rights advocate, Huffington Post blogger. Jasmeet, what drives you?
It's a good question. I was thinking about this the other day, actually, about why do I get involved with the things that I get involved with? Particularly with violence against women, with journalism. I've done some work with HIV/AIDS. And I think the one thread that kind of connects all these different things that I do get involved with is sort of my immigrant background. And I think, I know that's kind of a typical answer you'll hear from many immigrants, but I think it's so true that I just think about all the opportunities that I've been given growing up here in Canada versus if I'd grown up in Malaysia, I would not have been given the same opportunities. And I just think there's just that inner drive in me that just wants to take advantage of everything that we have here in Canada, especially as my status as a woman is not, something that's hindered here. Freedom of expression is obviously that's something that's encouraged, and creativity. And it's just this ongoing desire that, I have all these great opportunities growing up here in Canada. Let's make the most of it, because it could have been a very different life for me growing up in Malaysia.
Now, what do you blog about with the Huffington Post? I mean, I have read, one of your blogs. You talk about your gap year.
Yes. So yeah, I'm currently in my gap year right now. I just graduated recently from the University of Toronto, and hopefully be heading to graduate school in September. And but when I was speaking with the living editor that I did meet with in New York City, she really wanted someone to blog about sort of this nebulous time that happens when young women graduate from university and trying to establish their careers. So the main thing that I blog about is just sort of making those career decisions, making those postgraduate further education decisions, and sharing my stories with others about that.
Now, you were in the African country
Namibia.
Yeah.
Namibia.
Namibia. I can say it.
Yes.
Now, you were reporting there for some time. That was really important to you, and about the plight of HIV positive women. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I was actually there with my professor from the University of Toronto. I was there as his research assistant. He does a lot of work with HIV-positive women in the Jinkwasi community in Namibia. And so I was there for 4 months in the summer of 2008, and I was volunteering with a woman, Jennifer Gatsi Mallet, who was with the International Community of Women Living with HIV/AIDS for the Namibia chapter. And I had learned from her that there were several emerging cases where pregnant HIV-positive women, once they gave birth in the hospital, they would be forcibly sterilized so they wouldn't be able to get pregnant again without their consent. And I was horrified to learn this, because it's horrifying to know that you were being forcibly sterilized, and it was something that you didn't know, and it was just something that they did in the national hospitals. So when I was there, this is the summer after I did the community editorial board, so I had my connections at the Toronto Star, and I had made connections with the local media there as well. So I ended up writing about the stories of those women, what was happening to them, and in particular, I wrote columns about it for the Toronto Star. And it was a great experience for me as a journalist, because that's when I really started to see how powerful the media can be. especially my articles in the Toronto Star about these women in local villages in Namibia. It was something that got international attention, and I was starting to get emails from lawyers, in the United States and Europe who were interested in helping these women out with building a legal case against the hospitals that were forcibly sterilizing them. So I ended up coming back to Canada in September, but it was just an incredible feeling to know that these women were getting their voices heard all over the world, and I was sort of a mechanism for them to get their voices heard. And I think that's the beauty of journalism. That's the power of journalism, that attracts me to it every single day.
So you interviewed the women who'd been sterilized,
and sort of the different people around the hospitals, and trying to figure out what was going on there. And I think the legal campaigns are still ongoing in terms of getting compensation for these women, but it's been a long road for them.
Yeah, what was your general sense? I mean, for women there, I mean, were there any women that were actually pro-sterilization?
Not that I don't think. Well, pro-sterilization, I don't think anyone is pro getting sterilized without your consent. There probably are some women who feel that, they are, HIV positive women should not be having children. They should not be risking the fact that their children might also be passed along the virus. Definitely there are some women there that believe that, but I don't think I encountered anyone who felt that these women should be sterilized without their consent. I don't think I met anyone like that.
That sounds really horrific.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and I would imagine it was probably really emotional, an emotional time for you as well, to speak to these women and share their stories.
It was, I think, one of the difficulties of doing that was the language barrier, and a lot of these women did not speak English, so I had to, speak through a translator. And I think, in a way, it provided that barrier of not getting too emotionally involved, and it's something that you have to consciously be aware of as a journalist, of separating your own personal feelings and emotions with wanting to objectively tell the situation that is happening. And I think having a translator sort of aided in that.
Now, you were also reporting, are you involved with the United Nations Climate Summit? That sounds like must have been an inspiring time for you.
Yeah, so complete 180, HIV/AIDS, now climate change. Like I said, I'm involved in anything that I kind of feel passionate about, I just kind of jump in head first. And I actually got to visit 2 United Nations conferences on climate change. One was held in Poland in December 2008. The other one was held in Copenhagen, Denmark in December 2009. And I actually got to attend those 2 conferences as a member of the Canadian Youth Delegation. So Canada obviously has its own official delegation that it sends to these kinds of conferences, and I was part of the youth delegation. And I took the opportunity to actually blog about it for the Toronto Star website. The Toronto Star did not have a climate change beat or blog, and I obviously had my contacts there, from the community editorial board, and I was like, listen, I'm going to be there for 2 weeks in December. I could write about what's going on from a different sort of youth perspective, and they loved the idea, and I blogged for them at these 2 conferences for about 2 years, and it was a really exciting time.
Well, congratulations. I mean, it just sounds really inspiring. How did it inspire you as a writer?
How did it inspire me as a writer? I think it was the first time that I actually ever really did blogging. This was before the Huffington Post blog, and it was just fun to be able to experiment with sort of a new writing tool, so to speak, being able to incorporate images and sounds and videos. And I think the thing about journalism is it's never just about writing anymore. It's about telling the story in the best platform possible, whether it be through video, through a podcast, through text, through an interview. And I think the blog really helped me explore that side of journalism for me.
Now, do you think that youth have a strong voice, or do you think it's the youth of today does not have a strong voice, or not strong yet?
I think youth definitely have a strong voice. I think with the advent of social media, they now sort of have their own printing presses to be able to voice their own opinions, so to speak. Anyone can set up a blog, anyone can set up a website, and pretty much anyone can, do something with Facebook pages and Twitters. And you can see from members of the different government of Canada are on Twitter as well, responding to things that people are tweeting at them. And I think, as we know, a lot of young people are on those social media tools, and I think they feel empowered that they're able to connect with members of government that way and be able to voice their concerns and opinions.
So what would be your dream job going forward? I mean,
my dream job? It's something I'm still thinking about. Obviously, from this whole conversation, that I love media, I love journalism. I'm very passionate about social justice issues. So I think it'd be really cool to, work in documentary, work in production, and more writing. Anything that has to do with writing in my life, I'll be very happy about.
Do you think you'll write a book?
I don't know yet. I need a good book topic to really develop. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, for more information, if anybody wants to find out more about you, where can they go?
So the sort of the central house for all the different projects and writings that I'm able to do nowadays is on my personal website, which is jasmeetsidhu.com. And that's where people can find sort of the latest information about the different activities that I'm up to and where I'm heading next, so to speak.
And then, of course, the Huffington Post, your blog is there. They can find you at the Huffington Post.
Yes.
Well, Jasmeet, it's been just such a pleasure having you here. So I've really enjoyed our conversation, and you're an inspiring young woman.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You've certainly inspired me, and I look forward to speaking to you at a later point.
Maybe I'll come back for my book tour, in a couple years.
Yeah, we'll do that. That sounds really great.
Thank you for having me, Shannon.
Oh, my pleasure, and good luck.
All right, thank you.